It's the principal. It is awesome to be joined, of course, by my counterpart, semi-pro Mikey Dominic, and a couple of just all-star fucking legends joining us now. We got Commander Jack Riggins, retired Navy SEAL, Matt Slauson, retired NFL rock star, and also Mr. Man on. I can't help it, Mikey. It happens. This is computer. All right, we got Slau here joining us. Blaze will be in as well. Post Dismal River. And really the hot topic, of course, guys, is the PGA Tour versus the LIV. Commander Riggins, for me, I've always been I love golf. I've been a Golf Channel guy. I'm not into politics like, let's say, Mikey and some of these people, but I can't even watch anymore because I feel like suddenly it's, CNBC, or excuse me, MSNBC, CNN getting shoved down my throat. No one has a different opinion except for PGA Tour for life. If you're not in, you're out. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, let's start off first with it's US Open week and it's Father's Day week. So for most golfers and fathers, it's like double whammy week, best week of the year, I think, right? And we're all trying to play our game at our level, getting ready for this week, and we get home from Dismal. And to be honest, I get it. The whole LIV controversy 4 months ago, Phil takes a hiatus. I mean, whatever. To me at that point, I'm like, it's another competitive golf league that it's a startup. It has to pay people to come join it to start up. I'm a capitalist. I'm an American. Competitive enterprise is a good deal, generally. Okay. So I'm like, nice, whatever. And then I'm thinking more about it as we get closer to this week and we're at Dismal and they have their event. And I'm like, oh yeah, like the biggest ally to the United States in the region is Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Does anybody know that? Yeah. There's a lot of Saudi oil that keeps the world going. Yeah, that's good. Saudis. I mean, have they, like any other country, if we really dig in, done some dumb things? Yeah. Have some of the people in their family? Yeah. But nonetheless, it's a new competitive golf league. So then it starts off, we're in Dismal, whatever. There were guys, everybody at Dismal was watching it wherever to see the format. And then I don't have the spidey sense go off until I hear Rory McIlroy post-win comments. And I'm like, did this thing just turn into like a presidential election that I'm not aware of? Like, why is he taking shots just to take shots? Like, hey, good job, Rory. You won the tournament. Awesome. You won a tournament. Next week's US Open week. And in my opinion, well, what is he doing? So then I turn on Golf Channel live with, live from, and all of a sudden it was as if everybody in America in the golf world's life depended on the PGA Tour. And I'm like, well, first of all, PGA Tour, I think taking the hard stance way back when, that's always hard when you take a hard stance, always hard. And so I was like, don't know all the facts, but I knew that the players got a lot of great incentives because LIV came around in the tour. I know that. Don't know exactly what they are, but that helps them. And then I know that the guys that are going to LIV Tour are like, yeah, I'm going to the LIV Tour. It makes sense for me. I mean, what's wrong with that? But then the attacks. And then it's like, okay, let me explain this. I'm a recovering addict. Like, Phil has some issues. Tiger Woods had and probably has some issues. It's not the easiest thing to try to stop everything if you're in the public life, especially, and then come back into the public life and, feel completely comfortable right away or to answer questions. It's as if Phil is public enemy number one all of a sudden. And I'm like, no, it's not you can't get up there and be confident and truthful if you know what you did is wrong. What has he done that's wrong? He just joined another tour that's financially better for him at this point, and so have several other players. So it sounds like to me, the PGA Tour at this moment, and some of their stars are very defensive about this. They've taken a stance that's hard to back away from, and they're lobbing grenades. And I think that's dumb and it ruins the game. On top of that, golf media, just like CNBC, CNN, and all this, has joined in when, in fact, if the LIV Tour kicks it in a year or two, Golf Channel will be over there in a heartbeat getting money. Plain and simple, all the golf writers, like it is if this week never happened with them shaming legacy in the game. Give me a break. It's disappointing.
I love the fact that they put all their eggs in the PGA Tour basket. And then today, when yesterday, Phil's getting love from the fans, the media people are like, oh my God, how are they being nice to Phil? Like, hey, this is the narrative you guys have made up. I think something that's interesting, the PGA Tour, Slau, they don't have teams. It's not the Minnesota Vikings, the Chicago Bears. As a fan, I'm loyal to the golfer, the individual. I get why the PGA Tour is panicked. They're not owners. It's all individuals. And if those stars leave, they have absolutely nothing. There are no franchises left. As someone who came up in the NFL, you play for owners. Now, win or lose, bad game, shitty game, you got paid guaranteed. What are your thoughts on the PGA Tour, how they're trying to defend themselves and hold on, and then putting yourself in a position if you were one of the players?
Yeah, well, like you were saying, being a fan of the golfer, I am the same way. Like guys, go get whatever you can. Because correct me if I'm wrong, golfers are private contractors, right? They don't necessarily sign like a contract like I did in the NFL, how I had to sign a contract for X amount of years that team owned me for that amount of years. In golf, it's like different, right? I mean, Mikey, that. It's a little bit of a different setup over there. So the whole allegiance thing to it is kind of ridiculous. In the same way that our guys go over to the European Tour and play, and European Tour players come over to the PGA Tour events and play. I think the PGA Tour is messing all this up with the whole allegiance thing. I personally, as a sports purist, I struggled in the beginning when LIV came on the scene and Phil jumped ship, and I knew there was going to be a lot of guys following him. Initially, I was buying into all the crap. I'm like, oh, this is Saudi money. This is terrible. The atrocities that they do. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, for one, this can only be good for the game of golf, having another tour on, as long as the tours are all working together, right? Just the way the European Tour and the PGA Tour does. So if the LIV Tour and the PGA Tour work together as well, this is going to be better for everybody. And I've heard the argument of that, we're watering down the content because there's just going to be so many tournaments now to watch. I call BS on that. I can watch golf all the time. So I'm not worried about that. But as far as the atrocities that Saudis have done, well, look at America. We have done terrible things. Look at the NBA. I'm not going to call out the country per se, so this can still air. But the biggest money flow to the NBA happens to be a country on the other side of the world that is still doing the most ridiculous things to its own people. And everybody's okay with that, I guess.
Well, Slau, I'm with you. At the beginning, I was blown away. I'm thinking to myself, this is stupid, the LIV. And then as the PGA starts mounting their campaign, I find myself suddenly going, you know what? Maybe this isn't so bad. I'm starting to root for the LIV and these people. And guess what? I'm all for the golfers getting what's best for them as in any individual. And I have a hard time faulting someone who's going to get more money with less work. But with that said, I want to introduce Blaze, Team Blaze for life, by the way. Blaze Olson, the pride of Minnesota and Minneapolis. Blaze, I mean, you can start. You're just now joining us wherever you want. But I guess my first question is to you. To me, it seems like the PGA is bundling this and screwing it up from a standpoint of, the way they're looking at it. Your thoughts, if you were representing them and trying to do damage control, how would you handle this? And your 2 cents worth on the whole situation as one.
Hey, thanks, JB. Good to see everybody. Good to see Team Blaze showing up in numbers tonight. Only one member of the other team here.
The winning team.
It's Pride Month. You can't say other team.
I just did. So no, JB, there's two things or three things from this. One is I get the reason the PGA Tour is taking the position the PGA Tour as an organization is taking. What I've started to, be really annoyed by is the Golf Channel and golf media. It is like, this is like the days of our lives, this living breathlessly on soap opera and creating more of a soap opera than need be is just like, I mean, people who aren't golf fans who watch golf or, they talk about how boring it is. Well, the golf media is trying to create drama that isn't there, from the Golf Channel to golf writers, etc. And lastly, I, like Slau and like all of us, cheer for the players. And so, like, I've always been a big Phil fan. I've admitted to you guys, and I think we talked about it on the last principle. Like, I want Phil to be Phil. And I, by the way, I think his fans want Phil to be Phil too.
Absolutely.
And there's a little bit of hero, villain. Look at what Tiger's recovered from in his reputation. And I'll say it this way, like, I've not been a big Rory fan, only because I feel like he peaked early. Then he wins last week. He's got a little attitude. He's showing a little spunk, and I like him now. I'm like, at least he's like saying it how he wants to say it. And I just like the attitude that there's an edge there. People watch for the competition. They watch for the brilliant golf. They don't care what the tour is. The 3M Open is coming to Minneapolis in 5 weeks. And I'll be there no matter what. And I'll find somebody to cheer for, even if Phil isn't there this year.
Mikey, for you, I think the winners are the golfers, right? The PGA Tour has to step their game up. But your thoughts from a professional golfer standpoint, and not only how you would tackle it, but I think, the media against trying to like act like their division. Oh, the PGA Tour guys are going to hate the LIV Tour guys. Why are they going to hate them? They're just making it better for everybody. The PGA clearly is going to have to step their game up.
Well, clearly. We talked about it with Wyndham Clark on the principal a number of months ago, when he was just shedding some light on it, when we did not know the whereabouts of the LIV Tour. We still called it the Saudi Golf League, the SGL. We had no idea what was going on. And I think it provides some insight to how the PGA Tour needs to change. Would this be happening if Greg Norman did not choke away the Masters? I don't believe so. Greg Norman also got snubbed when he took the WGC idea to then commissioner, I believe it was Tim Fincham or maybe even the guy before him, and said, hey, we need to have these WGCs with guaranteed purses with the top 100 players in the world. And they told him to kick rocks. And then 2 months later, they announced their WGC campaign. So I think he's really feeling a bit neglected on that. And then he went out and started this LIV Tour. But going back to Wyndham, he said, hey, if you're the number one player in the world, maybe your guaranteed salary for the PGA Tour that year is 10 million. Number 2 is 9.5. Number 3 is 9, and stuff like that. And you just kind of rotate it as it goes, or you give the guys a stipend on Thursday, Friday in order to cover their travel, housing, etc. If you win what was it? JJ Spawn did it this year, the Valero Open. And you now have to book your travel, your room, in Augusta. Everything's already taken up. It's been taken up for 6 months from guys already going there. And you're immediately $30,000 to $50,000 in the hole, because you can't get into restaurants. You have to hire your own private chef. You have to get your own private housing, and same with the caddies. Like, those guys in there, yeah, they just got a decent check the week before, but now they got to find some place to live. And I think it's a bit hypocritical. And again, like, I like Rory. I'm with Blaze. I think he peaked too early. But Rory, he won the Dubai Desert Classic a number of years ago, where he went over there and got guaranteed appearance money. All these guys did. And they went over there and it wasn't a problem. Then he wins and gets a $2.5 million paycheck on top of his appearance fee. And now you're turning around and saying, well, we don't agree with their morals over there. Well, like Slaw said, the NBA they have their allegiance to a different country. And LeBron James has made that notorious in his tweets that he's not condemning them for their actions because he's in bed with them making money. The last thing I will say is with the Saudis and Riggins, is they're a huge ally of ours across the globe. But why are these golf reporters bringing up 9/11? I think that's rude. It goes back to the Tiger days. I mean, back in 2000, David Toms could shoot 59. They go, "Hey, David, really good round today. By the way, did you see Tiger shot on 14? How do you feel the state of his game is? Like how is he sleeping at night?" And it's what they have to talk about because that's where the money is. And I think going to Phil and these guys, going to look to, they're bringing up 9/11. The Saudi Arabians did not commit 9/11, right? So why are you bringing that up and saying that you're betraying your country and all this other jazz when those guys have gone over there and gotten guaranteed money? I think it's bullshit. And we'll go back to Riggins on this with the 9/11. I mean, I have to imagine your thoughts on it as a former Navy SEAL have to be pretty bad.
Well, to be honest, I wasn't torqued off until the press conference and everything in that 3-hour period, I believe it was Monday, started hitting the airwaves. And so my first thought on it, I've already talked about, and now it's here. So I was a little bit like when Rory spoke, I was like, just win the tournament and talk about the fun and greatness of that tournament and maybe say you're looking forward to the US Open. But there were all these digs, and that led me to go, ooh, there's something political going on here. As a matter of fact, he gave credence, whether we like it or not, to Greg Norman's comments. I think it was Greg Norman saying Rory's been brainwashed. And then he started this rant after that about that. He said that Jack Nicklaus is a hypocrite, I believe. Well, again, those might not be the proper words if I was talking to Greg Norman. But the fact is, Jack Nicklaus in that generation did do some things to get better conditions and better money. They constantly played in exhibitions, on a Monday or whatever to get money. And so to me, this is just an evolution of it. But where it went sideways for me was in the press conference. And I'm not saying on the tour. To me, the tour is the circus. The performers are the golfers, right? And there's different circuses you can join. I mean, there's a lot of tours around the world. And when they started bringing up, okay, first, the human rights. Every country put under the grind would fail that test, period. JJ Colleen brought up a good point weeks ago. Here are monies that the Saudi Public Investment Fund invests in. Shell, SoftBank, Boeing, Total, BP, Starbucks, Carnival, Marriott, Suncor, Bank of America, ENI, Citi, Berkshire Hathaway, Live Nation, Qualcomm, Walt Disney, Twitter, Facebook, Uber. America, reporters, do your research. You sound stupid talking to professional golfers when your job is to ask questions about golf in either last week's tournament or this week's tournament, and you're trying to bring in human rights things and political things into the conversation, right? You're just looking for clickbait. So I had that problem. Then the tour's been good to military families and tragedies around the country. There's no doubt about it. I have a hard time thinking that somebody didn't get a hold of somebody on the 9/11 Victims Fund to write those letters to people like Phil Mickelson. It's like a trap. Phil Mickelson has nothing to do with 9/11 or what happened then, nor 22 years later, 21 years later, does the Saudi Golf League being stood up. And if you have an issue with that, then I suggest you write the Saudi public fund thing and the president of the United States about all of those companies you can't see.
We can see them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks
Go
like
ahead and write them and ask for a boycott. And after we get results from all of that, you can ask one golfer. You can then go ahead and start asking single individual golfers who are independent contractors. So the point it went political and was really brought in from the PGA Tour side of it, I'm like, oh my God, what a disaster for golf.
Well, I was listening to Michael Collins yesterday on XM, the Golf Channel, and he said that the Golf Channel execs called in every member of the Golf Channel and let them know what the tone was going to be. And in no way were they to break line with, you know, this anti-live situation that's going on. And that just made me, I mean, I wasn't surprised when you watch the coverage. Brandel Chambly came out yesterday. I guess I got triggered or gave him the clickbait. He said Phil Mickelson, Greg Norman, these guys should be out of the Golf World Hall of Fame.
That's bullshit.
What?
That's bullshit. I saw that too. And that's crap, especially somebody like Brandel who goes out and says whatever he needs to do and take the opposite approach in order to get clicks and likes. Not to mention he has blocked the most people on Twitter, I think, on this earth. Okay. Number one, Brandel, and not Brandel won one PGA Tour event, credit to him, wraparound event, right? When one of the WGCs was going on and he won a wraparound event, then he couldn't hang, and then now he's in the booth. And Brandel's a complete tool. Nobody likes him. I don't like him. I got blocked by him, just so you guys know. I'm not going to tell you what I said. But question going to Slau. You talked about you signed a contract with the Bears, the Chargers. You are with that team for the next X amount of years of your life. Okay. If there is another startup football league, not the NFL, because we know the NFL, you know, used to be the AFL, NFL, USFL, all this other stuff. If when you were playing, if there was a new startup league that showed you the financials of what they had in the investors, and they go, hey, Matt, we're going to sign you $50 million over the next 5 years to go play O-line. We're not going to compete for the Lombardi Trophy or anything like that. We're going to go play in Europe. You're a young guy. Would you go take that in terms of generational money?
100 out of 100 times. Easy. I'm taking that. Look, you bring up that about being a young guy. And I think that's where the PGA Tour needs to be careful, because the way LIV is doing it with their essentially salarying players, guaranteeing money to them, the game of golf has morphed into the power of the young players, right? Everybody's tuning in to watch the new young guys that can hit it a freaking mile. And to see like a Scotty Scheffler who's come out of nowhere and then all of a sudden just dominates everything. And Rory was one of those young guys. Bryson DeChambeau is one of those young guys, even though I think he's the biggest tool in golf.
And he's going to be playing the next LIV event.
Yeah, exactly. So the LIV is coming over here and grabbing whatever superstars they can grab to kind of justify their league, solidify their league a little bit. And then they're going to start finding all the young guys that are trying to get on tour, and they're going to offer them a salary, whatever it is. They're going to say, hey, your minimum salary is $100,000. And then everything you win on top of that is just icing on the cake. These young guys are going to go, what? Yeah, I'm doing that, because I go on tour. I'm not making anything. And then my expenses are $250,000 a year. So I need to win to just make something, and maybe I don't win. So then all the young guys are going to go over to LIV, and then the PGA Tour will just slowly fade away, and all the history of the PGA Tour is just up in smoke. And that is going to piss everybody off, just because the PGA Tour is trying to take a hardball stance on it. I think they know what they have coming to them, and I think that's why they're trying to sully the names of as many players as they can. I saw the same thing happen over and over again in the NFL. You know, during the NFL lockout, I was a player rep, so I got to see a lot of the ins and outs during the NFL lockout, when, you know, the players and the owners would sit down and meet. The owners would throw a ridiculous contract on the table and say, you need to sign this now. And it would essentially take our financials back to like the 1970s from where we were at in 2011. Everything that players before us had fought for, I mean, all the different strikes and lockouts that had happened up until that point, they were offering us just essentially crap. And we're like, no, we ain't signing this. We'll come back when you're serious. Then the NFL would go to the press and say players aren't even willing to negotiate. They're walking out of the meetings. Like they're doing everything to make the public look at us a certain way. And then when the deal was done, when we finally got the new CBA, which was, the players took a hit there, but in some other ways we did well. Benefits wise, we did really well. And the owners told us, they're like, guys, we created this fund for post playing days when you have trouble, when you have problems that stem from concussions that even we didn't know about, when all you guys came into the league. But now the more research that's being done on concussions, and players are having a lot of problems with that. The NFL goes, guys, we set aside this fund. I mean, tens of millions of dollars. Just whenever you're having issues, you can come and get that money. But the only thing is, because of the type of fund it is, you need to sue us for it, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine really quick. And then so when these ex-players come and sue them for that money, the NFL's like, whoa, what are you doing? Then they go to the press and like, whoa, the players knew. They knew the risks. They signed the deal anyway. They knew the risks. Now they're suing us. It's like all their whole goal is to just make the player look bad. And I think it's because the tour knows that they're going to have to seriously adjust the financial structure of what they do, and they don't want to do it. So they're just going to try to make the players look as terrible as possible.
Yeah, I think the PGA is being greedy, right? Like when you see the owners, that's the comparison. And you talked about the history. To me, the history really isn't even the PGA Tour. We don't talk about Sam Snead and his wins and who's got the most money. We talk about the majors. And the majors, I mean, at this point, aren't connected. So if LIV or whatever the tournament is or series is that can figure out a way to get these players, I think that's really what it comes down to, because that's the judgment, that's the history. But I did think it was interesting today, listening to the CEO of the USGA, and he starts off by talking about, suspension, these players, we have to look into it and whether we're going to accept them. And then in the very next breath is talking about exclusivity and how that the USGA is open to everyone, and it's, quote, an open championship. Well, what is it? Are you going to exclude people because of stuff, or are you going to be an open and allow the best goddamn golfers in the world play, Mikey?
I think here's the thing. When these players come out and they talk about their legacy, okay, if you put those guys out there every week and they competed for Korn Ferry Tour money, let's see how many of them stick around. Because the DP World Tour guys will make money. They're playing for half the purses that the PGA Tour is making. And then the Korn Ferry Tour guys, they're not making any money. The guy, he might win twice, $250,000 with $80,000 worth of travel expenditures. I mean, when you look at being a professional golfer in the top rank, they want to get to the PGA Tour to play in the best stage, in order to play for the most money, because that's something like that is life-changing for those guys. So for them to go out there and say, oh, it's not about the money, it's about my legacy. The Canadian Tour players don't make any money. Latin American tours don't make any money. Asian Tour, you might make a little bit. DP World Tour, yes. One of the best tours that got started before it was, and I consider going over there and playing, was called the MENA Tour. It was the Middle Eastern North African Tour. And it was just oil-backed money. There was no Q school. Your entry fee was $20 a tournament. And you would go play, and if you won, you got $100,000 to $150,000. The only problem is you're playing the Middle East, North Africa. That's not exactly the safest travel conditions, So for them to say legacy, I think for guys, Rory's already solidified his legacy. Sam Burns is one at number 10. He's solidified his legacy. He's still playing. He's chasing the $10 million of the FedEx Cup. The NIL money, I think, is bullshit. Tiger posts one swing and wins $10 million. Guys like Max Homa and Joel Damon that go out there and they're on Twitter and they're funny and they're getting guys to like them and all this other stuff. There's no clear definition of how you win the NIL money. And they came up with that because they were trying to provide incentive for the tour players to become likable and fan engaging and movement of the game, but it's all gray area. You don't know what, Tiger posts one swing video and wins the 10 million. That's bullshit.
And I'm sorry too. I have to say, to me, the tour from the beginning sounds like the Biden administration. Remember, defund the police, and then first State of the Union address, we're going to fund the police. Like, they made a hard stance. And now they're trying to figure a way to sell it. You know, Rory going on the attack, them talking about legacy. I mean, they've all but the entire apparatus has taken a shot at every player that's gone to LIV. And they've got 9/11 families, nothing to do with this. They haven't done their research on what the Saudi Public Fund does for other American companies. And that's what's shedding the bad light and has me upset, is that it went political on the week of the US Open, Father's Day, when everybody just wants to watch golf. And I'm glad Brooks Koepka said something, but you know, Rory just needs to play golf. And oh, by the way, hey, listen, everybody here has been elite at some level in their sector, right? You know, comparative to the norms. And here's the deal. I'm a golf fan. There's only about 5 guys that have a legacy. I'm going to tell you: Ben Hogan, Bobby Jones, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and now Tiger Woods. Not even Phil Mickelson is up in that Tiger Woods era. So trust me, Rory, unless something gets going, in 20, 30 years, you're just another great player in this era. Like, that is a terrible excuse. It's political, and that's what bothers me. Blois probably knows it. Like, they've turned it into the typical good versus bad political. Man, I'm a golf fan. I want to watch good golf. I'll watch it anywhere.
Well, it's a sideshow, right, Blaze? I mean, they got to trash legacies, because if they're going to go with the money battle, they're going to lose that.
Yeah, I mean, Jack and Slau both said things that are very clear in labor or association, organizational, competitive messaging. And this is what you do. So my golden rule is make the other side respond to you so you don't have to respond to them. Well, the PGA has been in response mode about the LIV Tour for months. And so now PGA, some guy like me, is sitting there at the PGA saying, we got to figure out a way to villainize the players and the LIV Tour. So you're right, Jack. Somebody reached out and found somebody who they knew and said, hey, it'd be helpful if you wrote a letter about the 9/11 families being offended by these guys playing on this tour funded by these folks. And, you know, have they flown on a Boeing airplane? Have they, you know, and then Slaw, like your point about the NFL, like I've done a ton of labor work, both on the management side and on the union side. I usually represent public unions against government or nonprofits. And then I usually represent management in a private dispute. But, you know, we had, Slaw, you're exactly right about, I mean, the framing of the negotiation to the public for public sentiment is a clear strategy. One quick story, I represented the Minnesota Orchestra musicians in a lockout against management. And yep. And I'm glad you could all know your instruments. And
Riggins is pretty good with that flute. I'm just saying.
Well, you know, and Slaw, you're gonna love this, and because I was on the right side, but our labor attorney never ever put a response on the table because management's proposals were so ridiculous that he was like, well, we're not even going to respond, because then you get into this negotiation and you're already losing, etc. And so management continued this, like, well, they won't negotiate. Meanwhile, we had the goods. The management had gotten public money for a new orchestra hall, and then they changed the minutes of the organization, a public organization. Then they said, we're going to show financial health to get the public money for the hall, and then we're going to show poverty to cut the musicians' salaries. Well, then I just went out there. You'll like this, Jack. One of our keys was we invited George Mitchell to be our mediator, because if he could solve North Ireland, he could solve this national thing. So you're all right. The framing of it, the villains, the good guys. And you're right. Brooks is going to be Brooks, and Brooks is going to say that. The last thing I want to say about Phil, because I listened to the Shipnuck book to and from Dismal. And as you guys know, my dream job is to represent Phil. And I hate to say this, but I'd probably give up all my other clients.
Nothing wrong with it.
Is that, you know what nobody's talked about? Phil can be a cocky prick. All of us can. Phil can, gamble and lose money and have to get out of trouble. All of us can. But some of the graciousness and the heart that guy has shown that are even in that book, that Tiger doesn't do that stuff. Jack didn't do that stuff. I mean, at the level Phil has done it, how the stuff he does that nobody knows about with charity, the amount of people he's like paid for college for, like, oh, Phil, you need people on your team. You got to quit getting the shit kicked out of you, Phil, and you need to go on offense. And you need to be like, you know what? I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm going to keep being me. I can deal with my family. I can deal with my gambling, but you want me to play golf. I'm going to play golf, and I'm going to tell you what I think. And I'm going to keep hitting bombs, and I'm going to have fun on Twitter and Instagram. And you guys, and you know what? The fans will flock. They will flock because he is ultimately somebody who is approachable to the guy. He is the bar stool golfer of the day.
I don't know about you guys. I would love to see nothing more than a Phil or Dustin Johnson, one of these LIV guys, not only win the US Open this weekend, but then just to be embraced by all the fans. I think it would just be epic.
Oh, it would. And you know what? If that happened, JB, I guarantee you that we'd get through this season and there'd be some détente between the LIV Tour and the PGA. Because here's the deal. Phil and Dustin and the guys who have gone to the LIV, the only reason I don't want to watch the LIV now is because Patrick Reed and Bryson DeChambeau, but that's a whole different story. Like, I'm like, well, don't get those guys. I don't want to watch those. But JB, if those guys have done nothing to actually activate and motivate their fans to push back on the PGA. One tweet, one post from those guys with the commissioner's email address that says, email him and tell him what you think of the way he's treating golfers. He'd change his email address in about 3 minutes. And by the way, I'd take out a full page ad in the New York Times with his cell phone number too, but that's just.
Well, I think it all changes when we're already seeing the reception that those guys are getting in Boston. And if the Boston fans love you, right, they're going to be harder than anybody. So I think it is coming when they say, hey, we're not the hated people that the media is trying to present to us. Mikey, go ahead.
I think Captain Blaze brings up a very great point here. Patrick Reed and DeChambeau going to the LIV Tour does absolutely nothing. Same with Kevin Na. And the reason why it is they didn't have any fans anyways. Okay. I'm kind
of a Kevin Na fan. I'm just going to say it.
Well, you know how he.
But I would disagree. Bryson DeChambeau has a following, and so does Patrick Reed. They're polarizing guys.
Anyone who I have met, when they show up, I'm like, who's your favorite golfer? And they go, Bryson DeChambeau. I'm picking up my clubs from their car and moving it to a different car, and I'm riding in a different car. I might even pack my.
Well, regardless, Mike, you have an opinion about those guys. You have an opinion about them.
When Bryson is telling a buddy of mine at the US Open, when Bryson was in, my buddy was an alternate. They played a bunch of AM golf together, and he's giving him advice on his putting that there are 3 dimples on the golf ball that are in an alignment, and that's where he puts his line on his putter every time, so he gets the most pure roll. If you did that, how are you missing putts? Either you're a terrible reader of the greens, either your stroke is messed up. I don't know what it is. Bryson DeChambeau, Slau and I talked about this. He does it for the cameras. SMU is ranked 240th in the country in physics. The guy should have been academically ineligible. It's SMU for not going to class. He has no idea what he's talking about. He airmailed the green at the Masters in the second round when he was leading after the first round. And he's on the phone in his cabin with Google Earth, TrackMan, and Cobra trying to get an answer of why the ball flew the way that it did. Okay, you caught a flyer. You hit it too far.
But
who cares?
But it's branding, and it's very uniquely his. And while I don't necessarily love watching both of those, although I don't mind Patrick Reed on the Ryder Cup team, here's the deal. Golf doesn't control who the next 5 or 10 years players are. So as they come up, if 1 out of every 5 happens to be a Bryson or Patrick Reed and goes to the LIV Tour instead of the PGA Tour, they are getting drained of talent. And that's got to be part of it for the LIV Tour for sustainability. And yet they've got some old war horses and they've got some names. Don't forget the European names that are out there already. I mean, Garcia pulls weight in the golf world over there. Poulter does. So does old man, I happen to love him, Lee Westwood, right? Now, that same thing happens on the DP World Tour. Younger guys with the choices. And so my point is, hey, it's a new competitive league. We'll see if it gets off the ground. They've had a good start. To Bloise's point, the PGA Tour is the one looking like fools right now. LIV doesn't have to do anything except show up at their next event. And oh, by the way, the odds are, since almost everybody on the LIV, I think, not everybody, the big names, have a major, we're going to see the Charles Schwartzels again, no matter what, at the Masters. We're going to see Phil for a long time. And so every time one of these guys places even in the top 10 at, say, a major, or God forbid wins it, it's all positive for the LIV. And I think the tour made the biggest mistake by just drawing a hard line. Hey, don't make a decision. Think about it. Probably if I'm the commissioner, even though I'm not, I just go, you have to play a certain number of events to be a PGA Tour member, and you give all the incentives that they eventually got. But the fact is, listen, if you go pull in a anonymous poll, the current PGA Tour players, I have it on very good word to 60 to 70% in an anonymous poll would not be happy with things that are going on. And so it just smells like a duck. It quacks like a duck. It's a duck. The tour's wrong on their stance. That's my end of the story.
That's very true, because life rule here, when you are the tormentor and you are tormenting somebody, aka the tormentee, if the tormentee remains quiet, the tormentor is going to self-destruct. And tormentors, they're trying to get a reaction out of you. The LIV Tour has remained quiet. They took no shots at the PGA Tour. They're quietly going about their business. Therefore, they're getting a reaction out of the PGA Tour, which makes the PGA Tour look bad. With those guys going over to the tour, or to the LIV Tour, and they have no fans, I basically said it's just like when the Oakland Raiders moved to Las Vegas. Okay, the fans are very upset. And I said, well, why are the fans upset? They all live in trailers. It's easy for them to move. Right? So there you go.
We'll work on that, Mikey. We'll work on that.
Either way.
I think what I know is Chargers fans were upset when the Chargers moved. And Slau, I think you could probably back me up on this.
Yes.
Well, there weren't enough Chargers fans in San Diego to fill the stadium, so they shouldn't be too upset.
Yeah, yes, you are correct.
The best thing about the Chargers move, if you guys have been to San Diego lately, there are more homeless people with LaDainian Tomlinson jerseys walking around. As the people started, when they moved, people started to burn the jerseys, and people were like, stop. Don't waste perfectly good clothing. Donate them. So you will see so many LT jerseys rolling around the shit parts of San Diego. It's awesome. Guys, I want to put one more to you, and then we'll call it a day on It's the Principle. It's Father's Day weekend. It's the U.S. Open. Where does this rank in the majors? And do you have a favorite, U.S. Open memory? We'll start with let's start with Blaze down there.
I'd probably put this. The Masters is first. For me, the Open Championship is probably fourth. So I'd say it's second. And the only reason the PGA Championship competes is because I've been to it and I haven't been to a US Open yet. But the Father's Day, the tough course, and now the interplay, not just with this, but Phil has a long history of criticizing the setup of the US Open. And so it's there. I can't pull a favorite memory from a US Open. But I would just say I'd like Phil to create one this weekend.
Slau, what about you?
Yeah. God, I don't want to piggyback exactly on Blaze here, but yeah, the US Open is 2. And the only memory I got is they constantly set the thing up to be the biggest pain in the ass course and just destroy players, which is awesome because you have to hit perfect shots to be rewarded. And if you don't, then you're completely boned. So Masters 1, US Open 2, for sure.
Riggins?
There's no doubt that for me as an American, the US Open is number 1, but I would also say the Open Championship for me is like 1A. They're both up there. I like basically the weather systems usually at the Open Championship and the fact of the historical nature of it and the crazy field from all over the world. I think that's the military and me traveling the world. However, coming back to the US Open, always, like many golfers, been enthralled with the qualification and everything. But I will say this, I remember, and this is both a Phil thing and a Payne Stewart thing. I remember I climbed Yosemite Half Dome on Father's Day of that Open, and we went up early so we could get down and watch the last 9 holes. And, that victory with Payne Stewart, who, by the way, folks, if you don't know your golfer history, was a very controversial figure at times within the PGA Tour with his attitude, some of his antics off the course, and winning and being an influential personality, and tragically passed on. And so, Phil had this journey along the way where he's never won one. And the US Open always seems to, and why I can relate to any golfer, both in the Open Championship struggling, because I never really win a lot, but I struggle. And then like Phil Mickelson piping it out of bounds, or Phil Mickelson losing to that putt by Payne Stewart, because Phil has had the most epic losses. Yeah. And that's a lot of times what golf is about. And the US Open tends to bring that out. But forever, unless something trumps it, it'll be Payne Stewart on that day that we climbed Half Dome in Yosemite draining that putt.
See, I would have thought it'd been the Tiger Woods broken leg because maybe there's a connection there, but apparently not. Mikey, for you?
I gotta go Masters 1. US
I don't know anything.
Yeah, right. We've tried to bring that up before. Riggins doesn't know anything about Tiger getting his leg broken at freaking SEAL camp. But Masters 1, US Open 2. The cool thing is, credit to a friend this year, I've gotten to go to both, and they're different. They're different mantras. You have the tradition of the Masters and the exclusivity, and people are there just to watch the golf and the pureness of golf. You got to go to the US Open last year with Wyndham, and that was a different experience because we got to stay with him and kind of see like what it was like being at a major, and him having to get up from a fog delay at 3:00 in the morning and go warm up and talking with his caddy about, hey, this is gonna be our warm up for the day because we're gonna get done with our round the last 3 or 4 holes, and we're gonna have to turn and burn and go into the second one because they had like a 20-minute start. He had to get lunch, he had to get coffee, whatever it was that did it. PGA Championship is 3. I'll tell you why the Open is 4th. I notoriously like the Open Championship. It is the British Open, and from my playing over there, I've had to deal with the R&A rules officials, and I would rather be in an elevator with Patrick Reed and Kevin Na and Bryson DeChambeau stuck for 6 hours than have to deal with another R&A rules official, because they don't like Americans. Every time I had a ruling question or whatever, I was treated like shit. And then the guy next to me, who happened to be from Britain or Sweden or whoever it was, hello, Zen, how are you? Let's just see here. Let's get you a nice little break here. You looks like you're standing on this hole. Let's take a drop, why don't you? And then I'm sitting there going, well, listen, my ball's in a hole. Well, nah, I don't really know. So the British Open, it's the British Open. It's not the Open Championship. But yeah, that's my ranking, and the Masters all the way. I just want to see good golf this weekend. I want the guys to play well. the USGA notoriously tries to trick up the US Open, and like what they kind of did at Erin Hills, or what they did at Chambers Bay, which is one of the worst golf courses on the planet. And dude,
Just don't go Shinnecock on us.
set it. Yeah. Just here's the thing: set it up difficult but fair, and let the guys go out and figure it out. That's what the US Open is. It's difficult, but if you hit the good shots, you're going to get rewarded. If you hit good shots and get unrewarded, that's the US Open. You're playing in the US Open.
And I'm with you. I love watching the guys struggle. As a shitty golfer, it's fun to watch these guys get beat up by a golf course once in a while. To humble brag real quick, when I did play the old course at St. Andrews, it was pretty awesome when you go in the Dunvegan and you talk about the American hate. In this bar, they've got like these murals and all these paintings of all the Open Championship, British Open, because you're right, that's bullshit. They changed the name a few years back to the Open. And Tiger Woods, when he boat raced the field by like 15, they put in parentheses next to his score, no wind. Like he was the only one playing the course that week where there wasn't any wind. And I cracked up. I'm like, he won by 16. Everyone played the same goddamn course. Like, let's be real. I think you can make a case for any of those three being the top, but I'm going to go Masters, US Open. The PGA is definitely my last. Just to me, it doesn't have the same cachet as the other. For me, my most memorable, without a doubt, Chambers Bay in 2015. I got to cover that event. I was there the first couple days. I got absolutely fucking stiffed by Holly Saunders, that bitch, as I tried to make a move on her. She absolutely destroyed me and punked me, and that's a story for another show. But I got to cover it. It's fun to watch the guys bitch about it. And then I flew home, and that Sunday, watched it in prime time with my dad and my stepdad, who's now no longer with us. And it was an epic fail by Dustin Johnson. Jordan Spieth came out of it. So that was definitely my most memorable. And I'm looking forward to a fantastic one this weekend. Yes, John.
Also Cam Smith's first US Open that he played, which he got a top 5 in.
Jack.
I'm trying to hit the button. One more. I got to reattack. I'm gonna do my best Ben Crenshaw.
Final.
But here's the deal. Just for you kids out there, you Americans, and all you Europeans and you British kids. Do you know why that is, Mikey?
No.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you why. It's because we Americans, yes, on Christmas Day, we did cross the river to go kick the British ass, and we did kick their ass all the way back to Britain, back in the Revolutionary War, and they can't get over it. So, number one, hey, it's just in their culture. They get their ass kicked by Americans. Okay, number two, Ben Crenshaw. Mark my words, I got a feeling about this. Up in Boston and everywhere, Americans love underdogs, and they love the people that are getting bashed on. They love it. Americans are all about it. And so if the PGA Tour doesn't figure out how to get out of the big monster kicking the little LIV Tour and beating up on people, the American people are going to turn on them. Because right now, the LIV Tour has the position of the little guy and the underdog, and the press is beating them up, and they got to be careful. And it might happen right during this US Open. I don't know, but I got a feeling.
Well said. I think it's a great spot to end it. Slau, Commander Riggins, Blaze, Semi-Pro. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm the Honorable. Until next time.
See ya.